Remember when Keir Starmer vowed to take a strong, no-nonsense approach to immigration? Those promises now feel like they vanished almost as fast as the determination behind them. Because Labour's latest stance isn't just a small tweak or minor policy change, it's a sharp U-turn. Many will see it as a betrayal of the commitments voters were given. Swapping clear-cut pledges for a softer, more lenient approach leaves people with one pressing question. When it really counts, what does Labour actually stand for? In this video, we take a closer look at the hard truths behind Keir Starmer's immigration plans and why they could affect every household in Britain. From rising housing costs to stagnant wages, we show how Labour's approach might reshape the country for years to come. So, are you ready to hear the realities Starmer would probably rather avoid? Not too long ago, Starmer stood before the British public, promising to take back control of the borders. Politically, it now feels like a whole different era. During his Labour leadership campaign, he spoke passionately about tackling immigration concerns, floated ideas like an Australian-style points system, and even discussed keeping free movement with the EU. His words struck a chord with voters who felt their concerns on one of the most important issues facing Britain had been ignored. Fast forward to today, and Starmer's message on immigration has shifted almost beyond recognition. Labour's current stance looks very little like those early promises. The language of strict control and points-based systems has quietly disappeared, replaced by vague talk of making the system work, as if his earlier remarks were erased from the record. Naturally, this raises a question why the sudden change, critics argue, it's a calculated move to appeal to a different group of voters, urban pro-EU audiences, while assuming traditional working-class supporters either won't notice or won't push back. Many see this as a clear betrayal, but it's a risky gamble and one that could easily backfire. The stakes are high if Labour takes power. Britain could face immigration levels that put unprecedented pressure on public services, housing, and jobs. The shift is stark. They've gone from tough talk on secure borders to what many see as an almost open-door approach. And this isn't just a minor tweak or policy fine-tuning, it's a full retreat from their earlier position. It leaves voters wondering, if Starmer can abandon a promise this central so easily, what else might be up for compromise? The sense of betrayal runs even deeper. Labour's new immigration stance raises serious questions about how it could reshape the very fabric of British society. The numbers alone are striking. Projections suggest the UK population could reach 70 million by 2029. That may sound extreme until you consider today's population is roughly 67 million. Under Labour's approach, this wouldn't be a slow, manageable rise, but a sharp surge capable of changing the country in ways we've never seen before. What makes it even more concerning is Labour's refusal to set clear immigration targets. It almost seems as if they're banking on people not noticing that having no policy is itself a choice. But voters are paying attention. Pat McFadden's recent remarks highlight the problem. The Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury sidestepped the tough questions, falling back on vague statements about making the system work better without clarifying who it would actually benefit. Because for the average Brit struggling with soaring housing costs or trying to find a secure, well-paid job, it certainly won't feel like it's working better. Analysts warn that Labour's effectively open-door approach could mean hundreds of thousands of new arrivals every single year. This isn't just a number on a chart, it's a real shift in everyday life. It shows up in more crowded trains, GP surgeries stretched to the limit, schools under growing pressure, tougher competition for housing, and an increasingly squeezed job market. And the real kicker? Under a Labour government, net migration could soar to levels that make today's figures look modest, potentially bringing millions of new arrivals in just a single parliamentary term and reshaping life in Britain in ways few in Westminster are willing to confront. The scale of this change would overwhelm Britain's infrastructure, public services, and local communities, forcing a difficult question: is this really the future people want? As more people always mean more pressure, and Labour seems strikingly unprepared for the consequences. Immigration under Labour isn't just a numbers issue, it's a bricks and mortar problem too. An expanding population piles even more strain on an already stretched housing market where prices keep climbing. Demand never slows and supply lags far behind. The dream of home ownership slips further out of reach for ordinary Britons because adding millions more people to an overheated market is a recipe for trouble. Labour's house-building targets may sound ambitious on paper, but they quickly crumble against the needs of a rapidly growing population. More like trying to bail out the Titanic with a teacup than a real solution. Basic economics tells us that more people chasing limited housing only pushes prices higher, hitting ordinary Britons hardest, especially first-time buyers struggling just to get a foot on the ladder. The property ladder could slip permanently out of reach, with first-time buyers pushed aside and renters hit hard by rising costs, while landlords benefit from relentless demand. And if that sounds dramatic, it's worth paying attention. Experts warn that as long as immigration stays high, house prices are likely to keep climbing, widening the gap between wages and property values even further. That means the home you're saving for drifts further away month after month, nudging Britain toward a future where owning a home becomes a luxury for the wealthy, while the average worker is trapped renting for life, paying into a system that offers no real security. The impact doesn't stop at your front door. A housing crisis on this scale affects everything from community stability to the jobs people can realistically access, showing just how far-reaching the consequences of Labour's immigration approach really are. And if you think your pay packet is safe, think again. Under Labour's plans, wages could be quietly squeezed. At the same time, the cost of living continues to rise. The link between immigration and wages is more complex and more worrying than many realise. With UK pay flat for years, productivity growth stalled, and workers putting in longer hours for very little extra reward. Labour's immigration approach risks making an already tough situation even worse. Adding large numbers of new workers to the job market increases supply, while demand stays largely the same. Basic economics tells us what follows. Wages come under pressure, effectively suppressed. This isn't just theory. History shows a clear pattern. Periods of high immigration have often coincided with stalled or even falling wage growth, especially for lower-skilled workers. What might sound like a distant policy debate becomes a very real struggle for ordinary Britons, who are already finding it harder each month to make ends meet. Sectors like construction, hospitality, and retail are among those where British workers may soon face more competition from a growing flow of migrant labour. To be clear, this isn't about blaming immigrants, it's about holding politicians accountable for decisions that risk undercutting domestic workers. The real-life impact is straightforward. Doing the same job, working the same hours, yet seeing your pay by less each year. Hopes of raises or promotions fade as employers tap into an ever larger labour pool, creating a race to the bottom that benefits only big businesses hunting for cheaper labour. Pat McFadden's admission that Labour would set no immigration targets reinforces this concern, arguing that numbers should simply meet the needs of the economy. That might sound reassuring until you ask whose needs those are. It rarely seems to be British workers, with the likely result being wages falling further behind the cost of living. It's a short-term fix that props up a low-wage, low-skill economy while doing nothing to improve productivity or deliver fair pay. And if anyone thinks the NHS will somehow shield people from this pressure, think again. Labour's immigration plans risk stretching an already fragile health system even thinner, creating a paradox where hospitals hire more staff yet remain overwhelmed. Patients still face long waits, and the optimistic narrative crashes into the reality of an NHS already buckling under rising demand and staffing strain. Care professionals are already stretched to their limits, dealing with overwhelming patient loads after years of constant pressure. Yet Labour seems to believe that simply opening the immigration taps will somehow fix the problem. The idea that bringing in more doctors and nurses alone is a magic solution ignores a far more complex reality. While many migrants do work in the NHS, they also use its services, often offsetting any net benefit. It's like pouring water into a leaky bucket. The level never truly rises, especially when there's no corresponding expansion in hospital beds, GP surgeries, or core infrastructure. Labour's vague refusal to set immigration targets, echoed by Pat McFadden's claim that numbers should simply meet the needs of the economy, overlooks the very real and urgent needs of the healthcare system itself. Experience from other countries shows that higher immigration without careful planning often pushes demand faster than capacity can cope. Experts warn that adding more people without addressing staffing gaps, resources, and infrastructure risks. Longer waits, deeper inefficiencies, and even systemic failure. The uncomfortable truth is the NHS is already operating at full stretch, and increasing patient numbers without tackling these structural issues is like expecting a car with a broken engine to run faster just by pouring in more fuel. By the end, it's clear Labour's immigration plans for the NHS are far from the miracle cure. They are being sold as leaving a growing sense that the British public is being let down again, this time with our health services on the line. But the NHS dilemma is only one part of a much larger national reckoning. Labour's shift from a party built around workers' rights to one that seems relaxed about unchecked immigration is striking, raising serious questions about the cost of abandoning its roots. A party that once argued for controlled borders to protect wages and working conditions now feels worlds away from the legacy of leaders like Keir Hardie or Clement Attlee. Today's empty reassurances about serving the needs of the economy and the refusal to set clear targets mark not a small policy tweak, but a seismic change, leaving many long-standing Labour supporters feeling pushed aside. A movement founded to fight for fair pay and secure work increasingly appears focused on pleasing urban elites and big business. A sense of betrayal that hits hardest for generations who believed Labour existed to stand up for the working class.